One of the greatest pleasures that I get from coaching athletes one on one through Knighton Runs marathon coaching is seeing their transformation from going from somebody who just runs to somebody who both thinks of themselves and trains like an athlete. I never participated in sports when I was younger. I really only discovered running when I was in my mid 20s. And it's kind of funny thinking back how when I was a kid, I never committed to doing any sports, and I could never stay with it for more than a month or 2. It just wasn't for me. But when I got into running and started working with my first coach, that is when I really learned what it's like to train like an athlete. I'd run for a couple of years before investing in my first coach, and I had actually come into the running world through a background in hiking. You see, it took me, I guess I would say, close to 25 years to really figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I'm still figuring that out today. But all through high school, all through college, and in my early adult life, I knew that I just didn't love the track that I was on. I was a good student, I always got good grades, but I really didn't enjoy school. I thought it was all kind of a waste of time, didn't like what I was studying, and didn't like the path that I felt like I was being set up on to go get a job in a field I didn't care about, just work for somebody else for the rest of my life. It was only when I quit my first engineering job at the age of 24 after having paid off my student loans from college that I started to go out into the world and try to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Kind of cliche thinking about it, but I had read Bill Bryson's book, A Walk in the Woods, and convinced myself that going to hike the Appalachian Trail would be a great thing to do. I had no hiking experience before doing it. I think I spent 1 or 2 nights camping, just a couple of weekend trips, and then off I was on a 6.5-month hike from Georgia to central Maine. I didn't love hiking, but I went out to do it and found love through it. That was the trip where I think I fell in love with nature and being outside. It was the trip where I fell in love with just movement and being active. And for anyone who's gone on any backpacking trip for any length of time, you know that that clear purpose of moving forward day to day, just covering ground, is meaning enough to keep going. And when I came back to Boston after finishing that trip and re-entered the workforce, I took a slight career path. I wanted to do something a bit more environmentally focused, a bit more in line with my passions. So I left the traditional engineering world and started working for a company that helped homeowners and businesses reduce the energy consumption that they were using in their homes. And that was fun for about a year or so, but yeah, I didn't really love it either. I was eventually laid off again and went out for another hike, this time for the Pacific Crest Trail. Hiked for 3 months from the Mexican border all the way up into Canada, out by Vancouver. And by this point was totally in love with hiking. I wanted to do that and just that. But I came back to Boston again, had to get a job, and kind of went back into that same energy efficiency industry. Wasn't super passionate about it, but found something to do that wasn't so bad on a day to day and had the right balance of being outside and movement and self direction, I think, that I was looking for at the time. And that's when I got into trail running, trail ultra marathons. I loved hiking, and I would hike up to 30 miles a day when through hiking these long trails. So I knew that I could run. I just didn't know how fast. And I entered running through the Trail Animals Running Club in their events here in the Boston area. So I did my first race ever, which was the Trail Animals Running Club Fall Classic 50K. I think that one was in fall of 2016. And that was my entry to running. I did a whole bunch of ultras those first couple of years. I didn't train like an athlete. I would just run haphazardly, kind of how most new runners do, just go out and run maybe 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. No real purpose or intention behind any of those runs, really, just kind of covering miles and doing it all sort of at a moderate pace. Occasionally, I would do a long run, but again, there was no real purpose or intention behind that other than to just go far. Didn't necessarily know how far to go. And then the bug kind of bit me to get into road running. And that's when I met my wife, actually. She was a Boston qualifier, had run several marathons, and ran with the Heartbreak Hill Running Company Club in the Boston area. And when I met her, I was intrigued. I always knew that I could run a marathon. I had done tons of ultra marathons, but going faster was something that I was starting to get more interested in. So that's when I decided to hire my first coach. And it was my coach who actually taught me how to think, train, and live like an athlete. One of the things I love about coaching athletes is now doing that for them and helping them run their first ever workouts, having them incorporate strength training for the first time ever with intention, having them follow a plan that has meaning behind it and a purpose for every run. Whereas before, there was no clear purpose. And giving them a path and direction for every month of training, every event they sign up for, weighing the importance of each week, each workout, each event, each race. When you start to incorporate all these things and start actually training, living, and thinking like an athlete, the improvement that I found personally and that I'm seeing in all of my athletes is pretty phenomenal. I just started working with another athlete this week who is running a ton, 50 miles a week or more, but has never really done workouts before. And I know that there's just an amazing opportunity here that once we start to include some basic concepts, simple workouts, simple supplementary activities, her running is just going to skyrocket. So that was a little bit about my journey. And it's what inspired me to start teaching this to others. Just wanted to share that story today. And I wanted to let you know about one other thing that I'm working on. I'm really excited about. So, behind the scenes, for the past couple of years, I've been working on writing my first book. And I'm going to release it very, very soon. I'm calling it the Run Faster Marathons Proven Way to PR by me, Chris Knighton of Knighton Runs Marathon Coaching. Basically, this is going to be a training book. Concepts in it, many of them you've probably come across before. But as I've dug through the books of all the prominent coaches and been in this world for years, coaching all different athletes as well as myself, I found what works for the passionate adult athlete, found what works for me. And I've kind of learned how every athlete is different, but there are certain types of athletes who benefit in the same kind of general ways. So in this book, I've really just put it all out there. My general approach for how all marathoners should train if they want to run faster races really just includes the key concepts that you want to know and be thinking about as you go into any marathon training block. And there's no training schedules in there, but I talk about each phase of training and the types of things you should be thinking about including. So I really think if you read this book and understand it, you'll have a great sense of, how to develop a training plan, how to approach your own personal running. So I hope you'll check it out. I'm going to be releasing it in October, but for those of you who want an early sneak peek on it, I just started a Patreon page at patreon.com/KnightonRuns. And you can sign up there and get early access to the book. I've been coaching athletes one-on-one for close to 2 years now, and I've realized that as I'm creating more and more content, that is impacting people far beyond just those who I'm working with in a one-to-one basis right now. So I created my Patreon to allow for those who appreciate my work to get a little more access to what I'm doing and insight from me. So whether you're just interested in supporting the work that I'm creating or having some voice in what I focus on next, or if you're looking for a little less than a full one-on-one commitment with coaching, but you'd like a little more guidance and direction from me than just I give to everyone online, check out my Patreon. There's a couple of different tiers for folks to sign up if you're interested. And I'd really love your support. It's been a real pleasure to have such great community support over these past couple of years as I've grown Knighton Runs marathon coaching alongside my full-time corporate job, which I never really loved. But now I'm finally doing what I love. So I'm happy you've come along for the ride. And if you've listened this far to the podcast, I hope you have a great day.